put people in. Ms. Gaga, how are you? If I knew it was you, I would have left you out.
Thanks.
Anytime. Okay. Let's see. We'll give it another. Depending on what clock I look at, the one in the classroom says it's 4, but my PC says 3:59, so I'll give it a little bit. Ashley, where are you? Central, Eastern, or?
Central.
Okay. How's it going?
I'm good.
Good. Very nice. Caroline, that looks like a pilot chair. What are you sitting in? It looks very exciting.
It's just a gaming chair.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. We've got a few others strolling in. Any questions for me before I get started? I mean, if we're just sitting here, it's silly to waste the time. No, don't be bashful. Okay. Well, let's see. My clock says 4. Eureka, how are you? Long time. Okay. We have 2 current students in here. If you care to ask them anything when I'm done, feel free. I have paid them handsomely, so they'll say only nice things. But, okay. Wow, it's getting busy. Now, how did you guys find out about this? Was it your counselor that passed it on to you? I'm guessing? No? Teachers?
I read about it in a newspaper.
You read it in a newspaper? Really?
Yeah, a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, no, I meant in the short term.
I had a couple of friends that told me about it. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, usually what happens in a typical year is we, hang up a bunch of banners, and that's kind of how it goes. In this case, I sent the counselors the link and the teachers, and I can't tell you how many counselors wondered whether or not they should come, and clearly was not the intention. That's fine. At any rate, however you found out, it's all good. Okay. Well, what I thought I would do, since it's 4 o'clock by every clock I have, is go over. I do have a little PowerPoint presentation. I know you hate those, and so do I. But I thought it would give you guys a good glimpse, just to make sure I don't forget anything. And then I'll explain what you would need to do to apply for the class. All right. And so, hang tight for a second. I will share my screen with you. Let's see. And tell me if you got it. Let's see, it's not spinning yet. Okay, can you guys see something other than my ugly face? All right, cool. All right, so let's get rolling. So when I give this talk to the public, I usually say it's inspiring young scientists. So essentially, well, it's called independent science research. Let me see if I can jumpstart this. This happens to be a picture from State Fair when kids were going, which hopefully will certainly be the case next year. But this is typically the mass of students that we have at the State Fair. We usually get about anywhere from 15 to 18 kids that go. If you have any questions, let me hide this. I can't see you guys, so if you have, as I tell my classes, if you have a question, just talk, right? The unfortunate beauty of Google Meets is that when you're presenting, you can't see a darn thing. So just let me speak up. Hey, I got a question. So, just to give you an idea of who I am very quickly, I've been teaching this class now for about 15 years. So I started as a baby. But I had previous career in instrumentation at companies like Foxborough, Hitachi, PerkinElmer. These are all companies that make analytical equipment, and I've taught it in colleges, and essentially decided to come to GHS in 2005 and replaced Ray Hamilton, who was the research teacher at the time. And it's been a whole lot of fun ever since. So essentially, the program was started more than 15. Well, I've been here 15 years, so it was much more than that. But the course basically is an opportunity for you to get credit to pursue an independent research project that you choose, right? So that's unusual. Most schools, there aren't many schools that do this. The ones that do things very differently, and I'll get into that. But essentially, the projects can take a year. Usually they take a year. Sometimes shorter, actually, because if you start in September, the science fair cycle is in March. So you have to literally be done in February. Now, I will emphasize this. I emphasize this all the time. This class is not Science Fair 101. That is what it is not. Did I lose myself here? Yes, I did. Essentially, it's an opportunity for you to pursue a project that really intrigues you. And you are the focus and you are the driving feature of that process. Of course, you get a lot of help. There's a lot of toys in these two labs that I put together that allow you opportunities to do physical and biological measurements that no high schooler should have any business doing, but you would. So the instruments are not the projects, but they are the means to an end, just like a screwdriver turns a screw, if you will, right? So, it takes about a year to complete. It can take longer. It depends what you're doing. So I have something here that's called the New York model. And what that generally is, and I'm sure there are exceptions. So, for example, if you go to Bronx Science, where my wife went, or some of the specialized schools, or even a lot of schools in Westchester County, the way they run their research programs is you basically express interest and they essentially lock you in for 3 years. So you make a 3-year commitment. And the idea is that you spend the first year doing literature research to sort of narrow down a project that you might want to take on, right? And then you spend some time trying to get help from outside mentors, whether it's industry, whether it's university, most likely. And then in your second year, you actually do it. Now, what that may take many flavors. You do it during school, you do it during the summer, and then finally in the third year, you present it and you publicize it. This is very different here. Basically, what we do is, in order to apply for the class, you have to write a research proposal, and the expectation is that you're going to do the project in the school year, right? So, my feeling is I prefer, and I don't need, I guess is the way I'd like to say it, students sitting around trying to research on a computer. That gets old very quickly. Rather, the feature here, or the overarching theme, is that you're engaged and you're working not because it's difficult. Oh, it can be difficult, but not because it's tedious, but it's because you can't help yourself and you want to get into the lab and do something because you're so excited to do it. That's the goal for all of you. What comes of that, whether it's a science fair participation, whether it's a science fair win and moving on to an international affair, that's great, but that's not how I measure success. I measure success as you are engaged, you're working. Science is what science is. You might take on a hypothesis that works well, or it might not. And you're not graded, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You're not graded by results per se, but by effort. So that's the big difference between the two. And there are some schools in Connecticut. Westport comes to mind. Amity has a program. Some of the Fairfield County schools, Darien or Canaan, they say they have a program. I don't really know much about them, but I don't think anyone gives you the opportunity like we do here at Greenwich High School, given the tools that are available to you in the school. The classes meet 6 times a cycle for an 8-day schedule rotations for an hour each time, just like an elective. So this is an elective class. So I'm sure you'll have to give up something else to take it. The point is, it's not your science. In other words, if you're a sophomore, you're going to be taking chemistry in addition to research. If you're a freshman, you'll be taking bio in addition, so forth and so on. So you're encouraged to seek projects and anything that interests you. If there's something that you're doing that I feel like, wow, I can't support you in any way, then we try to look for neighboring labs and universities. What tends to happen, quite honestly, is that it is so much more convenient, so much, you own it so much more if you're actually doing the work here, because you can make time as your schedule allows. You basically originate the process. You come up with the idea, you sort of drive the process in terms of making that plan of action. You design the experiments, you do them, and then you formulate and collate the results and report it. That's very different than if you were to go somewhere over the summer. And all of this is valuable. That's not what, I'm not saying this at all, but if you were to plug into a laboratory for 4 to 6 weeks over summer, generally speaking, you are plugging into a bigger effort, and they assign you a small part of it. Certainly, there's so much value in working in a university or medical school lab. However, I always think the kids here at the high school do so well is because they really own it from start to finish. And really, the science can be amazing, but when you communicate it, the better you are at articulating what you've done, the better you will do, the better it will sound, the better it will be understood. And that is really part and parcel of you owning the process, which comes from doing it. Okay? However, we've had kids do some work at Yale, Mount Sinai. My wife works at Boehringer Ingelheim. That has been closed down because they don't even have people working there at the moment. And that's true for a lot of universities where they're really only allowing their students, at this point. But that should change. And we get other private mentors from time to time donate their time. So again, there's 3 sections of this class. I cap them off at no more than 16 students per section. So, if you do the math, there's probably about 48 kids in research in any given year. So, the success, you could tell how old this thing is. It's been, I have to update it. The success just continues. I mean, we basically just, there's so many things that I'll touch upon in terms of competitions that avail themselves to you. But this particular year, we've had Regeneron Talent Search finalists, which is incredibly difficult. And just to give you some comparative thought, I mean, everything that you do in research, whether it's, in terms of your defense, your success, your failures, you own it, and you own all of it. There is no one standing next to you that's going to bail you out. This is not a team, right? This is you and you alone. So I say that to you not to frighten you in any way, but to give you some relativity and the awesomeness of it, I guess, is the word that comes to mind. Just how cool this is. It makes science so much fun. But essentially, with all the successes, so we've had Intel finalists this year. There's something called the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium, where the top kids go on to nationals. We swept those. We just had the science fair where the top 6 kids move on to international. We grabbed all of those. So it's been an amazing year. And it happens from time to time. Let's just leave it at that. So as far as kids that, want to take the class, there's 48 seats, and generally speaking, there are more kids than I can take. So this year in particular, I did a little bit of the math. And I have about 18 spaces that are left open by graduating seniors and/or kids that have decided to do something else. Once you're in the class, unless there's 2 ways out. Well, there's 3. You either graduate, you do nothing and I kick you out, or you decide you'd rather do something else in any given year. So that's how these openings, sort of come up. So I've got basically, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is write a research proposal as part of your application. And I'll basically look at the best 18 in this case and backfill those. And so how do I look at them? I'm basically looking at them not for who's writing a procedure that they ripped off of NPR and how to cure a specific cancer. I'm looking for something that shows that you've given it some thought. You didn't do it the night before or the 2 nights before. And you're thinking, and I could read that, I could see that it's something that you're passionate about. In addition to that, I'll reach out to your teachers to sort of see how they feel about you. I learned a long time ago. When I first started at the high school, I was teaching honors chem. And I was of the impression that a straight A or A+ student in chemistry should be a fine research student. That is everything but true. I mean, essentially, if you're, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're so wound up about your grades and that's all you think about, you will not make time for the opportunities that avail themselves to you in this class. And you have to be that person that can separate things and say, all right, for these 2-3 hours, I am going to focus on this because I'm having fun. I love it. And I could tune everything else out and I'll get back to it. And it's those kids that really excel in this class. The kids that you read about that are doing the amazing things that they're doing can do that. That's something that's a skill that they own. And that's not to say that kids in research aren't athletes, aren't in theater, aren't in debate club. They do all of it, but essentially if you can't divvy your time up and make, this course basically gets busy at certain times of the year. And if it's not a priority for you in those parts, then it's not a priority for you. It is that simple. And so back to the application process. So interviews, grades, I generally do not look at unless I really have to decide whether or not to take student A or student B, because, talking more to the point that I made before, it's not about grades. I'm assuming if you're interested in science, you're doing just fine, and so if I have to look at your grades, again, if you're an A+ student, doesn't mean you're going to do well in research. So I try not to even look at that, to be honest with you. So this is kind of what the lab looks like. These are old pictures, but these are instruments called HPLCs that do liquid separation and detection. Those are some old trophies in the background. Now they give out plaques. This is a GC that's running right now across the hall that is looking at some perfumes, actually, perfumes and colognes for how many components are in a perfume and how it creates the fragrance that it does and how we can manipulate it. That's kind of a fun project that we're doing after the science fair. Somebody have a question? Oh, okay. This is the lab I'm in right now. This is a fluorometer that measures fluorescence. Things that fluoresce are very special, and the measurements that you make on those are very sensitive. So that technique finds its way into a lot of biological science and even some physical. This is the instrument I'm leaning on right now, which is a near infrared. I have a student, not at the moment, but she's looking at coffee beans, for example. There's a big effort to mimic coffee beans that are very special, very expensive. And in doing so, the people that are trying to do that are tearing down forests. So it's really an environmental issue. And this young lady is looking for ways to very quickly and easily determine whether or not they're counterfeit to sort of go against that trend, if you will. This is an infrared that a lot of kids use that measures how bonds will vibrate and rotate when you hit it with infrared light, and that creates somewhat of a fingerprint for chemicals that is very useful in research. This is something called a spectrometer that measures reflectance of light, and this is the scanning electron microscope that we got a couple of years ago that really makes things a lot of fun. That's the pump that's going off. It should go off in a second or two. And another infrared. It goes on and on and on. So how do we measure success? Again, it's not how many awards you win at a science fair. It's basically how hard you try and how hard you work. There certainly will be things that you'll be asked to hand in throughout the year, whether it's a research plan in the fall, certainly an idea and a research plan, and then a midterm, which is sort of a presentation of your progress to that point. Same thing with the final. That's kind of how I measure it. And if you do a science fair, that really usually means that you worked your rear end off, and because that is a lot of work to get to that point. Whether you win, lose, or draw is irrelevant. So, a little bit about the money, just for the parents that are listening, just so you know. I will talk to you more about this as you're in the class, but we get nothing from the Board of Ed, absolutely nothing. So the way it kind of works, you might be wondering how a high school can do some of this magnificent research. We have Miss Baker is a teacher. She used to be a bio teacher here at the high school. And now she's works with the Greenwich Point Conservancy here in town, and she essentially has created a 501c account for us. What that means is parents basically fund this 501c account, as does, when kids win, in many cases, the student, the school gets money. So for example, these 4 Regeneron Talent Search scholars that we had this year, each kid got $2,000. Well, the school got $2,000 for each kid as well. So that money goes into that account. When the kids do well at ISEF, the school gets some money. And so all of the money goes into this account, and we're able to buy chemicals in the moment. In other words, we don't have to go through the school. I know this, this is probably going way over your heads as students, but buying things in a public school is nearly impossible. So we found a way to skirt that. The problem is the fund is only as good as the money going into it. So, oftentimes in research, you're going to need reagents and you're going to need them tomorrow. You ran out, the reaction has started, we need to get more, so we buy it. And that's kind of how it works. So it has worked. We usually spend about $13,000 a year, anywhere from 10 to 13, for the 50 kids. So as long as the money sort of keeps coming, you guys keep winning, parents support it, we're good to go. And in the moment, we're in pretty good shape. So this is what the state fair. Sure.
When is the research paper due for what idea we want to do?
Well, that's in a month. So I'm going to give you guys, I'm going to show you where it is on the, it's on the science, the Greenwich High School Science Academic website. Yeah, if you got to run or something, that's where it is. And it's at the very bottom. And it's basically, it can be anywhere from 5 to 7 pages. It's not about length, it's about content. Now if it's quadruple space and 3 pages long, most likely the content isn't very good. But it's really not about length, it's about ideas. You know what I mean? So I give you guys about a month to do it. And then I basically, because I'm being pressured by the school to essentially come back to them and say, all right, who's in this class so we can clean up these schedules. Okay. So this is what a state fair, I'm almost done and then we'll get to your questions. This is what a state fair looks like. This is at Quinnipiac University. So this is in their gym. You get to talk to judges one-on-one. Margaret here was a sophomore when she did this project. And so it's you and it's somebody that generally knows a bit more than you, and you're defending what you thought of, what you found. And it's really, the thing about this course is it transcends the skills that you get really are useful in anything that you decide to do. Well, you could break my heart as a senior and say you're going to go major in economics or whatever. That's fine. We all do what we enjoy, and that's the goal of this whole learning process and discovery is what do you enjoy? So if you find that you dislike research, that's just as valuable as finding that you did, to me. But I have kids that have left this class and work in the National Security Council. They work in pharmaceutical companies. They've gone to med school. It just is vast. If you learn how to articulate, you learn how to talk, you learn how to speak and convey your ideas, it's helpful no matter what you eventually do. This is the Intel Science Fair. Not Intel anymore. I'm sorry. Now it's called Regeneron, but it's still ISEF. And this, if you win you have to basically win your way to this by winning the state fair. So to say we have 5 kids going to ISEF this year is a big deal. I mean, that is huge. And this is about 1,200 of the brightest kids from the globe. This is an international event. Unfortunately, this year it's going to be virtual, which is really too bad because the whole experience, the bulk of the experience is being there and making the connections, making the friends that you have for life. We've always, this particular year, 2015, I'm counting, there were 5 kids. The young lady on the end was from another school. A lot of first places. Here was another year, one of the kids was not in the picture, and that's me, the idiot in the middle. We had 7 kids that year. So we've been lucky in getting the kids to this fair. This particular kid, Rahul, won first place he created a mosquito trap that if the mosquito had disease, it would actually turn the food a certain color. So you'd be able to tell from the feed whether or not you had to evacuate the area. It was really pretty cool. The talent search is I'm just going to buzz through these pictures. The talent search is for seniors only. And this is, so you basically apply to this as a senior in October of your senior year. And essentially there's about 1,600 kids apply. They narrow it down to 300 semifinalists. Now they call them scholars. And then they pick 40 finalists. So in that 1,600 this year, we had 4 scholars, and Greenwich High School was the only school to have 2 out of kids in that finalist list. So it was pretty awesome. And they each won the $27,000, which is really awesome for their parents, I would say. Google Science Fair, we had a winner there. I don't think the Google Science Fair is going any longer. I think it's done. They've decided to do other things, which is unfortunate. But that, led to so much for this young lady who is now finishing up at Stanford as an engineer, I believe. There's a water competition that kids do that, I don't know if that's running this year. There's a fair that happens, they call it the Phenomenon Fair, that's at the Bruce Museum. That's usually in May, so I don't know what's going on with that. And then there's a Norwalk Community College Fair that happens in beginning of May, and I don't know whether they're doing that this year as well. But all of these are the same experience, and certainly the bigger the fair, the bigger the winnings, but that's really what it's not about. It's about the experience and learning how to talk. And if you're the problem with the state fair is you have to be done by February. Well, if you can't get done by February, then these other ones are later, and you can certainly go to those and get your practice, get your feet wet, and then come back to the state fair the following year. This is something that the kids apply for any year. This is called the Davidson Fellows, and they give money away. They give anything from the awards are $10,000, $25,000, and $50,000 for innovative, original research. So this fellow here is from our class. He won 25. This girl here I raised, and she won 10. There's a couple others. Who's in this picture? William won 25, and Hiba won 10. And Rahul, the fellow with the mosquito trap, won 50 that year. That was pretty impressive. And kids have been in magazines, the list goes on and on, but it's more than, I'm almost done. It's more than science. It's a lot of fun. It is basically an opportunity to dig science, love science, feel good about science, and make a lot of friendships. They're all walks of life in this room that you may or may not have the opportunity or the inclination to speak to as you walk the halls of this tremendous school. In a normal year, we go to Yankee games because I'm a Yankee fan, no other reason. We do all kinds of things. We have holiday parties. So it's a lot of fun. So you get to learn about things you want to learn about, and you get to have a blast all at the same time. So let me close this, and then I'll get to the what is this assignment that I'm asking you to do. Let me go to that, and here's the website. Somebody had asked. Well, that's where the Google Meet link was. Right underneath it, if you click on this little application assignment, you will basically come to this. And so it's not particularly long. It basically says before April 20th, which is 4 weeks away, tell me a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Please give me your email address so I can notify you whether or not you've made it, the class that you'll be entering, the courses that you expect to take. I have never not taken a kid or rejected a kid because they're overloaded, but kids tend to do that. I see it. I've been here long enough to know what it looks like. And I will have a conversation with you and say, look, these are the things you're trying to do. This may or may not work, and we'll have a good conversation about it. So any names of science teachers you can give me, and then of course an experimental based research proposal and whatever it is that you're interested in. So where do you find these things is probably what you're wondering. Science Daily is a website. So Science DAILY, that is a website that basically looks at all the recent discoveries and tries to distill them down to single 1 or 2 page summaries so that you can easily understand it. So the idea is you see something there you like and you delve into it. When you read these papers for the first time, I don't expect you to understand more than 20% of it, but that's okay. Right? If you're into it, by the time you're done doing whatever it is you're doing that's related to that paper, you'll be able to explain everything. So it's not something you need to worry about. You could look at Science News, again, one word. That's run by the Society for Science in the Public, which is the same agency that runs all these big science fairs. You could look at the ConnecticutScienceFair.org, look at the abstracts from previous years. You could also do that for ISEF. If you go to ISEF, Society for Science in the Public, and you just Google ISEF, you'll find it. You could look at previous abstracts, and they're listed not only by year but also by technology, so you can really get a feeling for what kids have been up to and essentially what you can try. And by all means, when you're thinking of these things, don't think of it in a bubble. If you have questions, reach out to me. Send me an email. Come by when you're here in school at room 932. You don't have to make an appointment. Just walk in. If you send me an email, it's likely to take longer because I'm usually busy. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just busy. So if you just walk in, that's better. If you're not at school, then tell me, hey, I'm not at school, and I'll try and get back to you as fast as I can. But I don't want you. This should not be an exercise in you disappearing for a month and sending in something that you hope is going to be okay. If you've got an idea and you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. And I can guide you with respect to, is it or isn't it possible with the means that we have here at the school? Is there something else you could do that's sort of related, so forth and so on. And that's really the extent of that piece of paper. It says 5 to 7 pages. It says when it's due. Don't be late. I warn you, if you're late, that tells me you can't make due date and you're done. Right? It's really that simple. All right. So it's either in my possession. Zara, I've seen your face so many times. I feel like I know you. It's either in my possession or it's not. Regardless of your internet, regardless of the weather, I don't care. So get it done, send it to me. And that's really all I got to tell you. It's a whole lot of fun. I think the kids that have taken it or are taking it tend to like it. Eureka, please go like this. There's and it's for so many things. I look at Eureka. She just finished the project on smart dressings. Did really well. Won $500 and said she was going to split it with me, but I haven't seen the money, so I'm just concerned. Isabella is working on coffee plants up at the agricultural station in New Haven. So there are opportunities where we can plug you into scientists that are somewhat local that give you a little bit more opportunity to do your thing. But we got a lot of toys here, so we have a lot of fun. So who's got a question? I am done talking and I'm out of tea, which is a problem.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are there any advantages or disadvantages to taking this class in 9th grade versus 10th grade?
No, I don't think so. Well, you asked if there are both, and that's not an answer, right? I mean, you tend to grow into the class, as does your scientific knowledge. And that was my old-fashioned take on things. Once upon a time I said, well, let's not take a 9th grader because they're just getting started. And then it occurred to me, and I had an experience where I took a couple 9th graders and they won the science fair. So it's really not about let's put it this way, Ava, right? If you're, the things that you will try and tackle in this class, you don't know. You do not have your head around any of it other than the fact that you like it and you're interested in looking into it. So if we use that point of argument, what's the difference whether you're in biology or chemistry in high school? None of those classes are going to teach you all that you need to know. You're going to learn it because you're going to express interest in it. You and I are going to sort of tackle it. And the hope is that I can stay a couple of days ahead of you in your reading so that I can almost look like I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. I'm just a little faster than you. So that's kind of how the process goes. So to answer your question, there is no reason why you shouldn't take it as a 9th grade.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I had an 8th grader in here once, to be honest with you. It was bit of a pain, but because he wanted to come. So yeah, the point is, it's just, if you're interested, you're interested. Who else?
Can I ask how many ninth graders you typically take?
Usually 2 or 3, but that's not to say I wouldn't take more. You know, if somebody, you know, I gotta be, you know, the thing about middle school teachers is, boy, they love to talk about you guys, and that's great. You know, they will tell me, as your teacher already has, you know, what you're up to, and you know, if you're doing great things and or you really are interested, I will see that, or I will hear it, and I will find out. So I certainly could take more. You know, I do not, just for your own info, I never take seniors as first timers. There's no point, right? They literally, let's put it honestly, do nothing, right? I mean, the problem is they're doing, they're you know, they're doing a college application. So if they're, you know, that the idea that they would start the class as seniors and actually get something done in lieu of all that other work that they have to do is, it doesn't. So literally, I'm only taking freshmen, entering freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. And the kids that are seniors are the ones that have been here. So, does that help? Yes, Brandon, what's up?
A bit of a variation of that question. If I try out as a junior and my application is rejected, can I try again as a senior, or?
No, generally not. Yeah. So make it good.
Okay.
Make that junior effort pretty good. I mean, it's not a personal thing. It's really, the only time I have even considered that is if a student came to me and said, look, Mr. B, I've got an opportunity to work at you know, Mount Sinai or Rockefeller this summer, and I'm going to be there for 2 months. And I'd say, okay, you show me that you got that done and you have something now to work off of and apply, because the senior year requirements, or what I hope to get out of a senior, is that they apply to this talent search, they do all the things that seniors do. And then after November, when all that is sort of passed, they can decide whether or not they want to do another science project. So if you're just getting started in September, most of you guys will be sitting around in October still wondering, how am I getting out of my own way? So what's, you know, as a senior, what's the point? Yes, Ashley, how are you?
I'm good. This is more of like a practical question, but
Sure.
I'm remote. I'm like a remote student at the middle school.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
would I just email you my proposal?
Sure. Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, just, you know, just do me a favor. Just put in the subject. Now everybody's going to do it to get my attention, but just put remote for the first word. How's that?
Okay.
And it'll catch my eye, you know. But, you know, I know the hope is that this is not something we worry about next year, but one of the most successful student I had this year in terms of awards, not in terms of what got done, was remote, you know. And the other issue is, all right, so you're not remote, you know, somebody like Eureka or Isabella, they're here 2 days a week, which means they're likely only in the lab 1 hour a week in terms of class time. So all these kids that you're going to read about in the paper in the next day or so did these things, you know, the bulk of the work, and again, this is not meant to scare you, it's meant to excite you, is done after hours, whether it's in, you know, right after school, when it gets busy, it's on the weekends, when it's really busy, state fair time, you know, the holiday breaks, we usually come in. And the beauty of that, other than me having to be here, which is fun, is that you can do this work without bells ringing in your ear. You know what I mean? Without the class bells going off where, oh, I gotta go, you know, I can't do this, you know. So it's that's how science is. If you're a scientist, you're not worried that, oh my God, I gotta leave in an hour. It's an all day thing, and it's days that run into weeks. You know what I mean? So that's the best feeling that you can get to realize what science is like, is during those times. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers your question. But yeah, do that in your email, and I'll make sure I get back to you. Anybody else? My God, so many people looking at me. Nobody's got a question? Isabella, what's up?
Do me and Eureka, do we have to write another research proposal?
That's a tough question. No.
Actually? Okay.
No, it's not. I mean, the idea, and you raise a good point, you know, year to year in the class, and I mentioned it before, but I'll reiterate it, if you're working, you're working, and I get it. I see it. I don't ask you from day to day, what are you doing? I'll never come up to Angelina just because I'm looking at your face at the moment and say, hey, what are you doing today? And if you decide in any given day, I got a chem test next block, can I peek at that? Sure. But if that becomes the norm rather than the exception, that's when you run into trouble and your grades will suffer. And I will tell you way before that happens, hey, look, this is not a study hall. You've got to get going. And so how did I loop into this? Back to Isabella. No, of course not. So year to year, I will tell you when I don't want, that sounds horrible. When you're not welcome any longer, how does that sound? And it's because you're simply not working and you're just sitting around, and that is very rare, but it does happen. And my feeling is very simple. Look at all these faces that want to take this class. So for me to have 2 or 3 kids that are just taking up space, it's ridiculous. So I jettison them as quickly as I can. Make sense? So no, you don't. No. Anyway, is that a big sigh of relief for you? Yes, Audrey.
In the research proposal, I noticed that the sources have to be journals and magazine articles, and I was wondering where I could find science journals and if they could be on.
Well, yeah, that's a bit of an issue. I could tell you the illegal way. Here's why I write that, or why I wrote it. If I don't put that, all I will get are web links. And that's not that. That's somebody's opinion. It's usually not journals, which are realistic science. However, you might have trouble doing it. I will tell you straight up that I use Sci-Hub a lot. So far, my computer has not blown up. You can't use it in the school environment because they block it. But if you do sci-hub.se, I think is the latest version, or TW, it works. Literally, you put the DOI in there and you'll get the paper. If there's something that you can't get, you've tried, you tell me and I will get it for you. I don't want you not reading something because you don't have access to it. I could either talk to a friend, try and get it myself, or we'll get it. So yeah, it's a good question. Just let me know. All right. Who else? No one? Maya? Nothing? Megan? God, there's only a few boys. This is hard. What's happening? Mitchell, you're all good? All right. I hear beeps. It says somebody raised their hand. I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, just start talking.
And Boston. Okay, yes, you didn't.
I'm sorry, Brandon?
Oh, I was just calling out the names of people. It says raise their hand.
Oh, all right. Let me see. I've got a little chat going here. I didn't check that.
Are there restrictions to the type of things that we can propose?
Yeah, there are. That's an excellent question. You can't, when it's biological, for example, the only thing we can do is what's called biosafety level 1, which is essentially E. coli that's non-pathogenic. If you want to do staph or something like that, we can't. Biosafety level 2 means you have certain facilities to work and get rid of the waste, and we simply don't have that. That's not to say you can't do those things. We can buy, in Eureka's case, we did it where she was looking at pathogenic E. coli. It's 0157H7. It's the one that basically sounds sophisticated. It's the one that gives you food poisoning and causes a lot of problems. And it's pathogenic, so that's a biosafety level 3. We could never do that, but you can buy these genetically altered versions that essentially behave the same way, yet they're safe to work with, and that's what we do. So that's kind of, could you work with cancer cells? No. We'd have to find you a place to do that. So there are some limitations, but what I would encourage you to do is don't place those limitations in the moment. In other words, look for things that interest you and then let me know, and then we could talk about what we could do to either fix it, get around it, what the alternatives are, things like that. Make sense? Carolyn, you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just a quick one. Would it kind of, I guess this is becoming weirdly specific, but is there any way to do something psychology-wise?
Yeah, Yeah, psychology. I mean, you could do the behavioral science, for example, is what you're thinking of. I mean, I had a student this year that created Adam. I can't say his last name. I should be able to, which is embarrassing. Adam did a project on behavior for risk taking. So he created an interview, right? Put it on some Amazon. I had no idea this existed. It was some Amazon engine that there are people at home that either are unemployed or want more money, and they literally sit there and do these little interviews. And so his I guess his topic was risk taking relative to generational cohort, married, unmarried, number of siblings, and he had 400 participants in that affair, which was pretty amazing. So that is something that if it interests you, sure. Now, if you can't do anything that's invasive, so I had a student last year, this year, that developed basically a computer program with an eye tracker that's normally used for gaming. Well, she came up with a way to have somebody read and tell whether or not they're dyslexic or have ADHD, which is really cool. So she had kids read. Now, you're not hurting them, but you still have to get a consent from the parent if they're less than 16. So there are things you can do. Some of them get trickier than others, but yeah, answer your question, sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody? Noah Kim. You're not related to the Noah Kim I had 3 years ago, are you? Okay. Zara, how old? You're an 8th grader, yes?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, so you'll be in high school next year?
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I thought you were. Yeah. Okay. My mistake. That's cool. All right. Anybody else that I can't see? Just speak up. Yes, Audrey, what's up?
I was wondering if the proposal should include background information regarding the scientific concept.
Sure, whatever. I mean, the idea is it's something I may not be aware of, and so excite me, right? In other words, if this is exciting to you, make it exciting to others, right? So whatever you think you need to write in there that will essentially stop me and say, whoa, this is cool, right? This is pretty amazing. This is something certainly worth pursuing. If you tell me that you want to measure how much vitamin C is in orange juice, there's nothing you could write that would excite me about that. And so that's the idea. Yeah, whatever information, whenever you start to present your research or write things, the scientific writing, I warn you, is so different than what you're taught in all these other classes. The first time I look at one of my kids writing, I feel like I'm reading a history paper. The words are from the SAT book. It's like, no. It's short, concise. And so I mention that because, for example, in an abstract, it is only 250 words that has to say, and Eureka could tell you, it has to say everything. It has to say what the problem is, what your thoughts are about it, what you did to investigate this change or this innovation, what you found, and why it's important. That's a lot to say in 250 words. And that's kind of sums up in a nutshell what you should write. You really want to get in that short amount of space, you want to get that person really excited about why it's important, in terms of what you did and what you found. So it kind of talks to your question a little bit.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. You guys, did I scare any of you guys? No? That's good. Well, you're not saying. That's even better. Yeah. That's not what this should be. This should be, I promise you, if you do this and you give it the effort that it deserves, and it deserves it because it's for me, it's for you. Things you get out of this class are for you. And, there are opportunities that no other class in this high school. It's not because I teach this class, but this is the best class in the high school, hands down. Right, Isabella? Yeah. It is. I mean, there's so many things that you get out of it. I know it sounds obnoxious, but that's not why I say it. It's the coolest thing since sliced bread.
What are the science?
I'm sorry.
What are the science fairs like?
They're fun. They are a lot of fun. They're a little at the beginning. The first time you do it, you get very nervous. But especially the first talk that you give. But you know, the whole thing, you know, what leads up to it is somewhat exhausting, in that there's so much work to do in a very short amount of time. But once you do it, and when I say do it, finish the poster, write the paper, articulate, talk, and hear people say, Eureka, that was an amazing project. That was so interesting. That's cool, man. You walk away and you go, wow, that is, you know, we all save things from our school, right? I guarantee you this poster is going to be a monster. Now, whether or not you hang it up on your ceiling is up to you, but it'll be the coolest thing that you make in high school, because it's all you. There is nothing in it that's a teacher. There's nothing in it that's a team member, you know? So it's to answer your question, it is probably one of the most exciting and gratifying experiences that you'll have. Agree, Eureka? Please agree. Yeah. Anyway, anybody else? Nothing? No? Website for the journals. Oh, you want me to type that in? Now, of course, this is illegal to someone, but that's so basically what you do, or it might be scihub.tw. It depends on what's going on at any given moment. As far as I understand, it's a Russian woman that is basically creating the site so that people can get, her motto is science for free or something like that. So essentially what you do, I didn't tell anyone. I just sort of typed it. You didn't hear me say that, did you, Isabel? I don't know what it does, but I mean, the alternative is that we have to pay $30 to school. You know, the high school licensing for journals is nowhere near what it needs to be for this class. So the alternative is you talk to your parents and you drop $30 every time you want to open a research paper, which, you know, they're very expensive. I mean, a lot of the kids, when they have a binder getting ready to go to a science fair, they got 10 or 15 journals sitting in the back. Well, that's a lot of money that you kind of waste. Like I said, if you can't get to it, just tell me. You know, my wife works at a pharmaceutical company. I'll get it somehow. Or what I had one year, well, for many years, one of my students went to University of Chicago, and I had his login, you know, his school login. Unfortunately, a lot of these systems went to a double, you know, I guess a double notification. So I really felt bad every time I needed to log in. I had to send this kid a text in class, so I stopped doing that. Because that was, yeah, nice. Anyhow, anybody else? I mean, if you think of anything between now and whenever, again, don't let this happen in a bubble. If this is something you want to pursue, great. Let me know what you're thinking. Come by, send me an email. I will not give you my cell number until you're in the class, because my phone rings at 10 p.m. enough. I don't need any more. I stopped answering at 10. But yeah, I mean, the idea is I don't want you to come to me a week before it's due. I just was having so much trouble. Just tell me, you know, and tell me what you're thinking, and we'll go from there. Okay? Good enough? No more questions? That's it? Sure? Anybody? What's up, Adam?
What is this called?
What do you mean? I'll follow it. Science research?
Science research, thank you.
Yeah, it's called Honors Independent Science Research. So the way it works, that's another thing I should have brought up. Right now, your counselor should be inserting it into your schedule, right? But all it means is that you're applying, and then essentially what's going to happen is by the end of that week of April 20th, I promised the administration that I would let the counselors know who's welcome. And so for 18 of you, it's going to stay there. For the rest of you, it's not. You know, and then you'll have to decide on an elective of some sort. The reason this happens so late is there's only one of me and too many of you. I mean, essentially the fair literally just ended on Saturday, you know, and now there's a lot of kids going on, which is a whole nother hill of work. But the point is, yeah, it's just not enough for me to go around. So this is kind of when we do it. Well, sorry for the inconvenience, I guess what I'm trying to say. Okay.
What do people do like after the fairs are over?
Well, it all depends. I mean, it depends on, let's talk about the math. There's 40, all right, so there's 45 kids in the class, right? So I would say about, well, let's say there's about 10 or 15 seniors, right? So they're doing the senior thing, what that means is they're doing the talent search, they're doing the Davidson, they're doing all these really intense applications that are like college applications. So they have to write essays, do videos. So that's a lot of work. And that's based on work that they did prior to the senior year. So those kids are sort of on the side. Some of them do science projects and go to the fair again. The kids that go to a science fair, in my opinion, it's so much work that they are essentially done for the year in mid-March. So it's like the earliest AP class you could take. That can excite you, but by the same token, it should somewhat make you concerned. You're like, ooh, I could be finished in March. And the reason I say that is because ask any of the kids that do it, it's a ton of work when you're in it. And then to get it done and do it, I couldn't ask for any more effort from those kids. I can't. So those kids, my expectation for the Eurekas of the world is to, all right, decide what you want to do next year, because I'm not asking you for another proposal, but I expect you to come in September with something that you can do and you hit the ground running. So that means between now and the end of the school year, you're giving some real serious thought to what it is you want to do next year. And if you could even start it, that'd be great. Now, beyond those kids, the seniors, the kids that did the science fair, there are a bunch of kids that were working, yet the results didn't get to the point where they could do a science fair. And those kids are still working, and they continue to till the end of the year. And it's not that they're, well, in some cases it's because they're slower, but in many cases it's because the science just didn't work out. And the idea is you only get one bite at the science fair apple. In other words, if Isabella, for example, grew a bunch of plants, some of them died, some of them didn't, some of them did what you wanted, some of them didn't. If you go to the fair with mixed results or partial results, to them, they rate the story for its creativity, imagination, and thoroughness. Chances are the thoroughness part is going to get slammed, right? Because it's not finished. And you cannot go back the next year and say, look, I fixed it. Or look, I did more. I had a girl one year that did cortisol in tears. So your emotional tears have cortisol in it. And it was a marker for stress. Nobody knew, right? So she did this project. She came in 3rd place in life science. She was one tick off of going on into the ISEF fair. So she went back the next year and said, look, I did 100 people. It's better. And they said, well, that's great, but then she wasn't even a finalist, because the idea is they saw it already. They already judged its innovation. They applaud the fact that you continue it to make it better, but in the same moment, they kind of dismiss it as we've seen this already. And that's unfortunate, because that's not what science is. Science should build on previous, but that's kind of how it works in the 15 years I've been doing it. So, wrapping it back into your question, the kids, we have these conversations where I said, well, you're not ready. You want to do it, here, maybe you should finish, and then you come back at a state fair the following year. So there is some truth to all of that. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? God, not a tea. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, I will end this. Oh, there is one more. Who's that?
So do kids typically work on the same project for multiple years, or because of that, do they do like a different project every year?
Most kids do different things. Mostly, I would argue, because they want to try new things, and they kind of, you take a project to what you think is its conclusion. Yes, if you sat there and you started thinking about, you always put down future work. Well, why not do the future work, right? Many times kids will get bored with it. They learn new things. They see new things. They want to try something that's a little more, I want to say more demanding, something that's more sophisticated. So they kind of grow into the whole process and then sort of feel their oats and get into bigger and better things. If you want to do the same thing over, or continue it, there is special circumstance and special forms that you fill out if you decide to re-up into the science fair. They call it continuations, but when you do a continuation, you have to show a very distinct break in what you did before and what you hope to achieve in the new year, if you will. And when you do your poster, there can only be maybe a third of the poster on old work. It has to really feature the new. So, getting back to your question, kids can run into trouble where they try and loop it all together. And if there really isn't a distinction in terms of what's new, why is it, what's better, what's new, it can run into trouble at a fair. It doesn't, but again, let's think back. This is not a course to prepare you for a science fair. This is a course so Zara can do what Zara wants. Who cares what 4 or 5 old farts on any given day thinks about your project? I don't. You might, but I don't, and so that's kind of the goal here. I always tell kids, you do what you want. You let me help you. We sort of talk it through. We get through it. The good stuff comes from those efforts. It does. Not for everybody. It might take a change. Might take 1 year, 2 years. But if you keep at it, good things will happen. I guarantee you, if you do nothing, you get nothing. That is the only guarantee I can. But so you can, to answer your question again, you do whatever you want. But if you decide to continue and do things like that, we have to really think about how you package it. That's all. Okay.
Got it.
Yep. Anything else? No? How's the weather out there? I'm about to break out of this prison. Nice. Good. All right. Hey, Mitchell, you're good? You said nothing, dude. What happened?
Were you expecting me to talk a lot?
I should say hello.
Well, hello. Nice to meet you.
There's a couple of you out there that said nothing. Maya, nothing, right? Well, I don't want to embarrass you guys. Anyway, all right. So I will look forward to hearing from you guys. Please don't be frightened. I've heard people have said to me, kids are scared to come to talk to you, which really blows my mind. I am certainly approachable. There are times I get a little nutty because it's just so much work for one person to handle. But that's not now. So anything that's on your mind with regards to this stuff, just come and see me or reach out. Okay. Look forward to reading all the good stuff that you're going to write, and let me know if you need help. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, guys. Take care. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Okay, how do I stop this thing?